This is the Mark Dolan Way. Top tips for mind, body and soul, some great life hacks, and my favourite products of the week. This show is available on all podcast platforms, or you can watch it. Just subscribe to the Mark Dolan Way on YouTube and join the Facebook group. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the show. How are you? I hope you are very well. Can I say happy Easter to everyone, whether you are religious or not? I don't think it matters. I think it's like Christmas. I think it's a time in the diary when most people have a bit of a break, a bit of a holiday. So hopefully you've had some time off. Certainly in this country, the United Kingdom, you have two bank holidays, two national holidays around Easter, Good Friday and Easter Monday. So actually, that's a 4-day weekend. It's a tremendous thing, and people really enjoy it. They spend time with their families. Some of them go shopping. A lot of them eat chocolate. It's tremendous. I think Easter is like Christmas without all of the hassle, without all of the expectations, without the expensive gifts and all that pressure to have a good time on Christmas Day. You don't have any of that with Easter. Easter is just a few days off. Chill out, enjoy. I've been enjoying it. It's now Easter Sunday, and I have been off, as it were, and a free man since Friday. And last night I cooked a great dish, which is not particularly Easter, but I'll just make that the first little life hack of the show today. Toad in the hole. Have I ever given you the toad in the hole recipe? Well, let me give it to you right now, even if I've done it before. I don't think I have, because it's so quick and it's so easy. Toad in the hole, by the way, Google it if you like. It is essentially sausages in a gorgeous... It's not quite batter, is it? Pastry, I suppose. It is sausages baked in pastry, and that pastry rises in the oven. It's like a massive Yorkshire pudding, and you've got lots of sausages dotted inside. Anyway, what I do, very simple, we'll power through this very quickly. You get your sausages, and the first Mark Dolan Way life hack, which I think I've invented. I can't have invented this. Surely others have done it, but this is what I do, which is I get my sausages and I prick them, okay? I prick them, I make holes in the sausages, and then I boil them. And what that does is it cooks the sausages and the fat leaches out of the holes that I've created. The fat, it just gets boiled out of the sausages. And then what you do is, and you don't need it for long, by the way, 4 minutes, 5 minutes of boiling sausages, and that will get the fat out. What you then do is you remove the sausages and put them to one side. And then you've got this incredibly fatty water. And if you pour it down the drain in your kitchen sink, if you keep doing that, you're going to get a blocked sink with a lot of fat building up in the pipes. So what I do, you've got two other options. You can either take it out into the street and pour it down the public drain. But what I do is I put it in the toilet and I flush the loo. That's what I do. So I got rid of all of the fat from the sausages. That takes 2 minutes and 5 minutes, I've just said. It can take 2 minutes. It doesn't take long. Once you boil them, that's it. The fat just goes. And the reason why is because you don't want the sausages sort of leaking all that heavy fat into the pastry, because that's just going to make it so calorie dense and heavy and sickly and just disgusting. Do you want to eat vast amounts of fat? I don't think so. I like to get it away, even though I'm not afraid of fat, but just from an aesthetic and palate point of view, I like to do that. So you've got your fat-free potatoes now. That's all done. Quick side note, if ever you're having a barbecue, that's a really great way to do your sausages, which is you boil them and you suck the fat out of them, and then you can just leave them cold, leave them in the fridge, whatever. They're basically these pale sausages. And then on the barbecue, you basically brown them on the barbecue for a few minutes. And it means that you don't get that problem with barbecues of sausages which are burnt on the outside and raw in the middle, because they're pre-cooked. You've already boiled them and they're less fatty. But anyway, so I'll toad in the hole. Good to go. You get a massive baking tray and you oil it. I'm a big fan of coconut oil because it's the kind of oil that doesn't change when it gets very hot. It doesn't degrade and become toxic like the seed oils do. There is a special episode all about seed oils on the Mark Dolan show, the Mark Dolan way. It would be good if I knew the name of the show, wouldn't it? Oh, the Mark Dolan way. But yeah, coconut oil. And do you know there's a really nice new product which I'm enjoying? And it is coconut oil which has had the coconut flavour sucked out of it. So it's odourless coconut oil. I love it. You cook with that, there's no taste of coconut. You can also use extra virgin olive oil, but then I don't think you can make the pan as hot, but you can use extra virgin olive oil, or indeed goose fat or beef dripping. Those are really good oils for this dish. So what you do is you oil your baking tray, and then you put the oven on nice and hot, 220 degrees, 230, hot, baby. And then you make your batter. And this is so simple. You need 2 glasses which are identical. That's important because then you can measure the ingredients up equally. So I'm afraid you need 2 identical. If you don't have 2 identical glasses, I need you to go to a very cheap kitchenware shop and buy 2 glasses which are just exactly the same. I'm so sorry. I'm going to need you to make that investment. And for a normal sized toad in the hole that serves 4 people, I would recommend, I'd recommend 4 to 6 eggs. I'll let you judge it. I think 4 eggs will do it. You get 4 eggs. You put them into one of your 2 glasses, which are identical. You mix the eggs up with a fork. Just blend them together. And then, however much of the egg you've got, in the other identical glass, you put white flour, just not self-raising, just standard strong white flour. And you have exactly the same amount of white flour as you have eggs. You then take the eggs, the egg mix, put it into a big mixing bowl, and then take that same glass that the eggs were in and put the same amount of whole milk, that's full fat milk, again, up to the same level on the glass as the white flour. You pour that milk into the egg mix in the bowl. You blend the milk and the eggs together with a whisk. You don't need an electric thing. You don't need an actual electric blender. You just blend it with your hand. Whisk, you just whisk it. Add some salt and pepper, whisk until they're beautifully blended together. You then take the white flour and you shake it on top of that liquid mix. And with the whisk again, whisk away so that you're whisking the white flour into the milk and eggs. Really give it some welly, give it some elbow grease, some proper hardcore whisking. And then you have this lovely sludgy mix. At that point, your baking tray should be nice and hot. And that is when you put your sausages onto the baking tray. Just chuck them on. And then, straight after that, evenly pour your lovely batter mix across the baking tray. So it's evenly distributed across the baking tray. It's obviously going to cover some of the sausages. It won't cover some of the others. You're not going to entirely cover the sausages. Don't worry about that. What you want it to do is be equally distributed over the baking tray. You then close the door of the oven and you wait. Keep an eye on it. Have a look through the glass and you will slowly see that batter rising. Now, don't forget, you don't have to worry about making sure the sausages are cooked because they've been boiled already. They already cooked. So all they're going to do is brown inside the batter. Anyway, the pastry rises. I still haven't found a satisfactory word. It's not really batter. It's not really pastry, but anyway, what can you do? It rises and it starts to bring the sausages up with it. So you've got the sausages pointing in different directions. And because the oven is hot, bits of the sausages get browner than other sausages. And it's just like a beautiful cacophony of colour and form. And I don't know how long you're going to put it in there for, but you're looking at sort of 10 to 15 minutes until it starts to look like the pastry, the batter is getting like brown, like starting to look like, oh God, it's going to burn in a minute. Just get it out. So sort of middle to darkish brown, get it out, and it'll have risen at that point. But don't bring it out too early, because what you'll find is if you bring it out too early and the pastry has risen a bit but is quite pale, you'll find that when you cut it up, quite a lot of the pastry is undercooked, or even, just a bit sort of mushy and liquidy. And that is the Easter toad in the hole. I can highly recommend it. Do it with some gravy, some peas, and mashed potato, and that is a lovely mix. Now, I realise this is the low carb podcast. I've just given you the most carbohydrate rich recipe. But two things: A, rules are there to be broken, and two, it's Easter and we're having some fun. So cut yourself some slack. Right, let's get through some life hacks. The first 4 months of the year are hard for me because I have a lot of birthdays and family things to remember. A lot of people need cards. You've had your Christmas, then there's a couple of birthdays, there's an anniversary, there's this, there's that, there's Easter. There's a lot of cards in the first quarter of the year for me to be writing. And cards are very expensive. I think it's a waste of money buying them in shops. I know that makes me sound like a very joyless person, but I do think that they're a bit silly. So what I do is, and I'd recommend you do this too, you can go to your local stationers and you ask for card. Okay, card. Now, let me see. I want to give you the right thickness here. I've got some very nice card with me at the moment. Oh, how heavy is it? 130 GSM. Okay, yeah. So basically, you go to your stationers and you buy card. And I would recommend something like 200 or 250 GSM, something around that number, because that will give you really nice, thick, heavy card. And you get it in A4. Okay, so A4 card, 200 GSM. And you simply fold it in half. Okay, you fold the card in half, and it is card. It's heavy, thick card. And on the front, you can just do a picture, or you can just write happy birthday, or there can just be a message, the birthday boy, the birthday girl, happy birthday grandma, but you just write that on the front. Use lots of different colors of pens. Remember, this podcast a long time ago recommended the joy of buying yourself colored felt tip pens. Because why are colorful pens the exclusive domain of children and professional artists? Why can't we all have colored pens and pencils? Do you remember when we were at school how much we loved getting stationery and how we loved our pencil case and all our pens inside with all the different colors? Well, I have that now. I've got a lot of pink ones here if you're watching on YouTube. I've actually got 3 pink ones and a lime green. Today's podcast set list is written. There it is. You want to have a sneak peek? There you go, behind the scenes. Today's podcast set list, the things I want to get through, are all in pink, and it makes me very happy. Anyway, why was I talking about coloured pens? Oh dear. Oh yes, to make these cards for people. So you write whatever it is, whatever the card is for, your happy retirement. You write that on the front page of the A4 card that you just folded, and then inside it's like, dear Marjorie, wishing you every happiness with your retirement, lots of love, Mark. And it's great, and that is a free card, isn't it? Because you can get a pack of card, maybe like 50 sheets of heavy card for less than £5. And that's, what's that mathematically? Is that, how much is that per card? Oh my goodness, I'm terrible. Anyway, I'll let you do the mathematics. But it's a marvelous thing. So look, there you go. That's it. Make your own cards using card. So simple, so brilliant. Something awkward happened to me yesterday, which is that I was in the supermarket and I've noticed this before, by the way, when I'm in charity shops or indeed clothing shops or the supermarket, which is that you go up to, let's say, the area that's selling meat or fish, and there's somebody there and they're really like studying the different bits of meat that they could buy. And you can just see that this is like a big part of their day. They're just there. They're going, do I get the fillet steak? Do I get the sirloin? Shall I go for chicken breast? And you can see they're really concentrating. And sometimes when I'm being selfish and I'm not thinking of others, I'll sort of barge in and I'll like sort of slightly get in their space, like reaching for a steak myself. And then what sometimes happens, and I've done it in clothes shops as well, where maybe there's somebody that's just looking at shirts and I sort of reach in and grab a shirt. Those people often sort of disengage and walk away. And I think, oh no, I really interrupted that moment they were having. So what I do now is if I see someone in a supermarket or in a shop, if they're very engrossed in looking at certain products on the shelf, I give them the space and I wait for them to step away, because I just feel that that's their time and I think they're immersed in that. And who am I to interrupt that and disrupt it and curtail the experience for them? You know, if someone's in a shop and they're really looking at socks, that could be very important to them. They really, really want better socks. They're very interested in the socks here that are available. Maybe they've got quite a hard life. They've got financial and professional concerns, relationship issues. Life is difficult for them. And they're just having their moment with the socks. And I just feel like, let them have that moment. Let them have that moment rather than pressurize them. They think, oh, this guy wants to see the socks now. And then they break off and walk away. So I don't want to do that. If someone's having a retail moment, I leave them to their devices. So this happened. What happened is this lady, I'd forgotten that golden rule, and she was looking at stuff in the supermarket, and I kind of was in her way a bit. And then she sort of walked away, and then I said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't want to," and she was, "It's fine." And then for some reason, she was over by the eggs later, and I didn't know it's the same woman, but I did the same thing with the eggs, and I realized it was the same lady. And so I was like, I'm in her face and in her space twice in one supermarket encounter. So I've become this pest, this very annoying individual, just annoying. Getting in her way. She's at the supermarket. She wants to enjoy it. She wants to look at the goods, and she's got this lanky guy reaching in and, spoiling the moment. Anyway, I can't believe that I broke my own rule twice. And then, oh my God, I'm somewhere else. I don't know where, it's like the vegetable area or whatever, but I find myself standing near her again. But this time I have not been in her face. I've kept a distance, but I've established myself as an annoying person, at which point I let out a fart. I literally farted near this woman. Now, I was hoping and thinking that we're in a busy supermarket. You wouldn't really notice a fart. Would you know it was a fart? Could it just be a background noise? It's a supermarket. But anyway, I've accidentally farted. It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't one of those kind of let it out, better out than in, not at all. It just crept up on me. And it came out, and she literally just moved away. So she acknowledged that I've just farted. So I'm this guy that has interrupted her shopping experience twice and farted at her. It's a complete disaster. I've got to tell you, it was a really bad trip to the supermarket, because then I got to this self-service checkout counter. By the way, do you pay for the bag? Because you know how they say, how many bags have you bought? Or I've got to tell you, I have sometimes, quite often, not paid for bags. If that ever catches up with me, I reckon I'll spend 100 years in prison, because I have not paid for every bag. And I don't know why. I've never shoplifted in my life. I didn't even steal sweets as a child. But for some reason, there's a bit of me that thinks or has thought that it's okay not to pay for the bag. I don't mean the proper hardcore, lovely, beautifully made £1 bags. I mean the sort of 10p, the bags that used to be free but aren't anymore. Anyway, that's not actually the story. I had been a good boy and I brought my own bags. But I was putting everything on the self-checkout, and it was such a bachelor shopping list. I had crisps, which is potato chips if you're living in America. And I had peanuts, cashew nuts, beer. It was just party. And the 4-pack of beer fell on the floor and just was like rolling across the supermarket. I'm now on all fours, grappling to gather these cans of beer and put them back on the shelf. I needed help. The whole thing was embarrassing. And then I just looked through the window of the shop, and my son was outside with his bicycle just watching me, just shaking his head. He's seen the whole debacle, and he doesn't know that I farted near a woman and interrupted her retail experience twice as well. He doesn't even know the half of it. But it was an unedifying scene and a very unsuccessful and damaging trip to the supermarket. I felt bruised by it, and God knows there was a sort of stream of terror that I wreaked on everyone around me, and it was very unsuccessful. A few things I want to talk to you about. I want to power through some pieces of advice that I have for you. If you're having difficulty communicating with loved ones or friends or your children, one trick is to talk about any old rubbish. So, for example, my children, they don't like to talk directly about their feelings because kids are not like that. They don't really like to analyze things. Children, which is, by the way, something to be very inspired by. Children have an instinct. Children are like animals. They just sort of get on with it. I was walking yesterday and I saw a dog whose 2 hind legs were attached to a trolley. This was half dog, half shopping trolley. And he was just bouncing along using his front paws to move, and his hind legs were on wheels. I'm assuming that's because there was an issue with his hind legs rather than this being a ruse from his owner looking to make a viral video. I think the dog was effectively a disabled doggy. But it was a great thing to watch. It was very sweet. But that dog is not sitting there thinking about how his back legs don't work. He's just a dog, and it's walkies now, and he's on wheels, and all is good with the world. And there's a lot to be said for being like that. And children are like that. They tend to just crack on with things. It's only when you get older and life becomes more complex and you start analyzing things that life gets harder. But so children are very inspiring like that, and we should all take note of the getting on with it factor. But on the other hand, you might need to talk to your children or young people about issues they're going through, which they're internalizing and which could be very damaging and corrosive to them. And it's better if they talk about it. So, for example, if a child is being bullied at school, right, that's something that they're just going to brood about, and it's just going to stay inside them. And it would be very helpful for them to actually talk to a grown-up, a caring, loving grown-up, about the bullying that they're going through. Or if they're just generally unhappy, they got the blues for one reason or another. But it's really hard because you can't say to your kids, and by the way, this works for other people in your relationship, your partner, your friends, your colleagues. It's not that easy to say, hey, how's your mental health at the moment? Or, hey, how are you feeling? Or, are you happy at school? Or, are you happy at work? Or, are you happy in this relationship? Are you happy with your life? These, for a lot of people, these questions are too big, too abstract, too personal, too invasive. So what I recommend is that you talk about any old rubbish, and that will be the gateway to them talking about what's going on in their life. So with my kids, for example, I'll talk to them about football or about music or about comedy or anything, any subject that they like, which is trivial. And I think you'll find that once you start talking about the football match and the team and who's the best striker, at that point, you've got the conversation flowing and they open up and they're relaxed and they let their guard down, and they've been talking about this footballer and should Spurs sign so-and-so, should Manchester United have a new manager, and then that's your way in to, by the way, how's life generally? Are you enjoying school? Etc. So there's a lot to be said for talking about any old rubbish in order to get to the important stuff. It's a lubricant. It gets the wheels moving. Was there another element to that? Yes. If you want to talk about, if you've got somebody that's not that good at communicating, One thing is get out of the house. Being at home, the domestic setting, I think, is a difficult place to talk about these big issues. So you get yourself out. I mean, I find I can thrash out a lot of things on walks, especially walking on holiday, like going for a big hike for a few hours. Certainly with my partner, I've thrashed out a few big issues by going hiking. Because you're just walking along, you're not looking at each other, you're looking straight ahead. And you're away, you're on holiday, you don't have your normal life laundry to deal with. And then you'd be like, you know what? I don't think I like my job very much. In fact, I think I'm miserable at work. And you wouldn't have had that conversation at home in your kitchen in the middle of the working week, but you will have it when you're away. And it's because you've come out of your normal domestic setting and it's given you perspective. I mean, that happens also when people are on holiday or there's some interruption to their normal way of life. And they'll suddenly just think, I think I love Stephanie. I didn't realize I loved Stephanie, but here I am hiking in the Himalayas and I've realized I love Stephanie. And if I was at home, I wouldn't have thought that, but I've realized now I love Stephanie. Or I want to write a book, or I want to have a new job or a new career, or I want to end this relationship, or I want to start another one. All these things happen when you come out of your comfort zone, come out of your normal setting, your habitat, and where you break your normal pattern. So we don't always have the luxury of going on holiday and hiking in the Himalayas. But if you want to thrash things out with someone, go and play pool somewhere, or darts, or golf, or pitch and putt. Another one that's really good is to go in the car. I used to make documentaries for Channel 4, and I found that if there was a guest, a subject of a documentary who had an interesting story to tell, but I wasn't able to quite unlock them, they weren't really sharing what I wanted them to share to get to the truth of who they are. We used to get in the car and we would just drive. And I found that when we were driving in the car, my guests, the subjects of my documentary, would open up because we're in the car, we're going somewhere. Like I said with the hiking, everyone is looking straight ahead. So it's non-confrontational. And also there's something a bit mesmeric and a bit hypnotic about driving. And people suddenly were like, yeah, when I was 5, my dad beat me up and da-da-da. And it's like, whoa, where did that come from? And it's because they've let their guard down. They're in the car. It's an amazing thing. You can thrash out a lot of issues in the car. Just you and that other person sitting in the front. One of you's driving, the other's in the passenger seat, and you've got the open road. You will get through a lot of issues. It's a very good environment for communication. And because you're not looking at each other, it's non-confrontational. And because you're in a car, it's unlikely that someone's going to get really angry and storm off because you can't. You're doing 60, 70 miles an hour on the motorway. Storming off is not something that's practically possible. Another few things before we wrap things up. I often have to catch up on calls. I'm very bad at calling people. I'm very bad at returning phone calls. It's something I have to work on. I really want to work on. But one thing is understandable for all of us is that we're very busy. We have absolutely busy lives. And therefore, where is there time to just stop everything and sit there on the phone for an hour? So what I do is I'll catch up on phone calls by having a phone call and doing something else at the same time. So let's say earlier this year, I think I said to you that I want to walk more this year because I don't actually walk that much. I do exercise, but I don't walk very much. I have a moped, a little motorbike, and we have public transport in this country, and I've got a car. So when do I actually walk places? I'm always motorized. So one way to kill two birds with one stone is you need to call your mum and you need to go for a walk. So you do both. And you just have the walk. And then at the end of the walk, you say to mum, okay, mum, I need to go and do some work now. Have a great day. And you've had your exercise. Maybe in nature, a walk in nature. And you're on hands-free. Because, we've got the technology now to walk and talk, haven't we? And that's a really good thing to do. The other time I've started doing this, catching up on phone calls whilst doing housework. So my wardrobe is an absolute disgrace, a complete mess of clothes, like an absolute mountain of clothes just piled up. It's a disgrace, and it doesn't make me look good at all. It's a very poor reflection on me as a human being. It's almost like a snapshot into my true psyche and what a chaotic individual I actually am. It's so bad. But this week I tidied it up. I had to had to have a long kind of phone call, almost like a work meeting type call. And I just tidied up the wardrobe whilst on that call. The call took maybe 45 minutes. That was 45 minutes of an important phone call and tidying this wardrobe. The wardrobe now looks great. The wardrobe looks great, and the call was very valuable professionally. So isn't that a very golden 45 minutes I've had, where I've transformed a major cupboard in the house that I've been ignoring it's been messy for years. And in 145 minutes, I've just changed it completely. And it stayed tidy, and I'm very happy about that. What I love about tidying your wardrobe, any tidying at home, is that you find things from the past that you'd forgotten about, like that t-shirt or those jeans or that belt. Isn't that amazing? You can do it in the kitchen too. You're like, oh, remember those rice noodles stuck at the back that you couldn't reach and couldn't see? I love the sort of, especially when it comes to clothes and stuff and technology, the sort of the back catalogue of things that you own that you'd forgotten about. For example, I've got an old iPad that I'd completely forgotten about. It's so old. It was like the second generation. But you know what? It's still an iPad. It's a screen. It's got the internet on it. You can read books and look at photos. It's absolutely fine. It's fine. It's so old, it doesn't matter. Found that a while ago. It's like, oh, I've got an iPad. Because I wouldn't buy an iPad now. I don't know about you. I feel that the tablets are not, they don't have the currency, I think, that they once did. I mean, I've got people that do love their iPad, the iPad Pro with the pencil. But as a general rule, I feel that maybe 6 or 7 years ago, it was on the list of the things that you wanted / had to have was an iPad or a tablet. I'm not sure that's the case now. But I'm delighted that thing's back in my life, all because I started tidying up again. It's a lovely thing. These glasses, if you're watching on YouTube, I've got these glasses which are very thin. They've got a really invisible frame, if you like. I think they're a bit Scandinavian. The brand is called Oliver Peoples. Made in Japan. That's not bad, is it? This is when I used to get really good frames, which I don't anymore. I mean, I love the frames I now have, but they're budget. They're very budget. These were premium. But there you go. I'm wearing them today. All because I tidied up and I found them. It's a great thing. So tap into your back catalogue of things that you own that you've neglected and forgotten about. And if it's clothes or glasses, start wearing them again. Even if they're horrible, there's just something quite fun about taking old things and reusing them and bringing them back into your life. It's a tremendous thing. It's a thing of beauty. Right, now, where shall we go from here? Oh, yeah, there's one other thing you can do when you're on the phone to someone, which is that you can do the washing up and tidy the kitchen. That's a really good one. I get to the end of the day. We've had dinner. It's been a long day. I would need to make a couple of calls. So I make the call and I do the washing up, tidy up the kitchen. I finish the call. I have attended to someone's emotional needs and hopefully fulfilled a few of my own. And I've got a gleaming kitchen. What's not to like? The only thing you can't do is hoovering when you are on the phone, because they won't be able to hear you and it will be an uncomfortable experience for them. I mean, I've taken this thing about doing something while you're on the phone to the extreme recently, which is hands-free calls on my motorbike, which does not work if it's windy because the wind noise goes on the microphone of the hands-free. But hey, I have and still do quite a few calls on the motorbike. What? I know. I'm very careful. I'm very focused on the road, but I have got the earpiece in one ear, not too loud, the microphone around my mouth, and I can make and take calls on the motorbike. As long as you don't touch your device, it just sits there in a holder, like a holster, And that's, by the way, another one you can do in the car, hands-free calls, as long as you don't touch your phone. Before you set off, call your mum, call your boss, put them on loudspeaker, and away you go. It's a thing of beauty. One other thing, by the way, to get the flow of conversation going. Let's say that you've got a friendship and you want to kind of unlock it a bit. You want to thaw it out. The communication hasn't been great. Watching something like a documentary together on TV is good, because documentaries spark conversation, don't they? Because documentaries are real and it will make you talk about the people involved to each other. And again, that gets the conversation flowing. All right, I'm going to power through the final thought. And it's the amazing Oprah Winfrey, who is, she's probably number 2 to Johnny Carson as the most successful broadcaster of the 20th century. I think Johnny Carson, who is a late night talk show host, probably just beats Oprah, partly for longevity, because he was, on TV for 25 years, just like the most watched show for 2.5 decades. But Oprah would either match him or certainly come a close second. Talk show host, former newsreader, a woman of colour that achieved amazing things against the odds, broke every rule, smashed through every glass ceiling, a fabulous broadcaster. I think a fabulous person. Very spiritual. I think she helped America have a national conversation for all those years that she was on TV. A conversation about emotions, about relationship issues, politics, you name it. I think she unlocked all of those conversations. And she became a global phenomenon. And she's still around, which is a great thing. Anyway, she's she said 2 things which stayed with me from, she had a podcast which was short-lived, actually. Not like this one, which is now on episode 62. And I'm planning an exciting announcement about the podcast soon, so watch this space. But on her podcast, I could look it up. Shall I quickly look it up, what it's called? Because it's actually good. It's nice to recommend other people, isn't it? I think so. Oprah. Let's see what comes up when you write Oprah. It's a shame that it didn't run for longer. Oh, it's probably because she's got, why? She's got loads of podcasts. Oprah's Masterclass, the podcast. Oprah's Masterclass, the podcast. And there are 2 episodes, part 1 and part 2, featuring Oprah herself. And the other masterclass is other accomplished people. And on this podcast, she said 2 things that stuck out to me. One, she said one thing she learnt in life is that you should do your best because it will be noticed. That's what she said. She learned, always do your best because it will be noticed. I thought that was I love that language of it will be noticed. I love how she phrased it. Now, this comes from a time when she was at school and getting involved in a reading assignment that she had. And she and her fellow students at school were given a reading assignment, which is that they had to read a book and then they had to write an appraisal of it. So they kind of read the book and then write up what they thought, what the important aspects of the story was, what the themes were. A full kind of analysis of, obviously, you read it, then you write about it and you submit. And you had 2 weeks, okay? You had 2 weeks to read this book and then hand in the work. Well, Oprah, she did the task in 3 days, okay? So in 3 days, she read the book, wrote the appraisal, and she returned the book to the school after 3 days. Because she's like, thank you, here's the book. I've done the appraisal. It was 3 days. So she handed it in 11 days early, basically. Anyway, this became the talk of the school. They couldn't believe it. The teachers were talking about it, the fellow students. She like that young, that Oprah, that Winfrey girl. she was able to turn in the work after 3 days. And by the way, Oprah wasn't showing off or anything. It's just that she was very motivated, and she's like, bang, 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 I've done it. It wasn't a brag. It wasn't ostentation on her part. It's just that she was trying hard, right? She was doing her best. And her idea of doing my best is, let's get cracking, let's get this done, let's do it really well, and let's get it done early and then submit. But she didn't realize, she was only motivated by the idea of doing a good job. She didn't realize what an impact this would have on how she was perceived by her teachers, and it became a big story. And off the back of that, she got recommended for writing competitions, and then she eventually got into journalism and then into TV, and she became Oprah Winfrey. But the common theme is that she always did her best, and it will be noticed, is what she said. It was noticed. She became a billionaire. You know, she's a billionaire. She's worth more than Donald Trump. She's worth over $2.5 billion. Isn't that something? So do your best, it will be noticed. I thought was fantastic. Don't you think it's great? Do your best, it will be noticed. We talked about this on the show before with, you know, why a Rolex is more expensive than a Casio. Well, because there's more work in a Rolex, isn't it? Not being critical of Casio, but Rolex tried harder. I mean, it's hard to compare because they're different types of watches, I suppose, so that might be unfair on Casio. But then, okay, what about a Mercedes-Benz versus a Fiat? Well, and I don't want to criticize Fiat. I've owned Fiat. I love the Fiat brand. But the Mercedes-Benz is a superior car, isn't it? I mean, yes, you pay more for it, but the implication is that they've tried harder. They have. The Mercedes-Benz is the product of more effort and blood, sweat and tears than a Fiat. It just is. It's better engineered and put together, and in 20 years' time it will still work and run better than the Fiat probably. Because they tried harder, they did their best. And the best is, you know, by the way, is very marketable. Because if you're the best at what you do, if you're somebody that tries hard, you do your best, well, people will pay for that. I mean, if you have a plumber and you're told, well, you've got Bobby, who's quite good, and then you've got Ray, who's the best. Which one do you want? You want Ray. You've got Bobby, who is okay and tries quite hard. And then you've got Ray. Ray will always do his best. You're going with Ray all day long. And Ray is 50 quid more. But you'll probably go with Ray because this is the plumbing. You don't want leaky pipes. And you want warm central heating in the winter, etc. So I thought that was brilliant. Do your best. It will be noticed. And isn't that easy for you to do, by the way? A big part of this show is having a takeaway for you that is doable. So the toad in the hole, you can just go and do that. Begin conversations with something distracting like football or darts or golf or driving in the car to unlock conversation. That's doable, isn't it? That is so easy. Catch up on phone calls whilst doing the washing up, tidying your wardrobe or going for a walk. That's an immediate takeaway. And do your best, it will be noticed is another brilliant one. So well done, Oprah Winfrey, for that. Why don't you this week do your best? And by the way, what I love about do your best is that there were no expectations, are there? There's actually no pressure. Do your best. So let's say I said to you, what's a good example? Would you mind cleaning the car? And I don't expect imperfection, but all I would ask is that you do your best. Okay? Well, that's brilliant because the person's going to go and clean the car and they've never cleaned a car before. And by the way, cleaning cars is not that interesting. And we know that the end product is going to be compromised. It's not going to be perfect, okay? Because unless it's a professional car cleaning place, it's difficult to do a perfect job. But if you know that your sole objective with the cleaning of the car is to do your best, well, then you're not going to be under pressure. You're not going to be overwhelmed by the weight of expectation. You just know that you'll try your hardest to make the car as clean as possible. And when you've finished, if it's still a bit streaky and there's a bit of mud here and there's a little bit of this there, but you've tried your best, then you'll be satisfied. It will be a satisfactory job. And I guarantee that the person whose car you've cleaned will be happy too, because it's clear that you tried your best. It was not a professional job, but it was good enough, and you gave it your all. You see this a lot in professional sport. Football, I like football, and I've listened to a lot of radio phone-ins about football, and I used to work at a sports radio station. And I've noticed one thing from the fans. They don't expect their players to be geniuses. They don't expect every player to be Ronaldo and Messi, because most football clubs don't have the budget for players like that. They have less talented, more ordinary players. And that's just the reality. Unless you are Real Madrid, then there are going to be players in your team who are less gifted. But what they have is they have effort. They do their best. And something that the fans will always forgive. If a team loses, if their team loses, but the players gave it their all and left everything on the pitch and patently did their best, the fans will accept the loss. They will. They won't be happy to have lost, but they'll be like, I watched our team and they worked hard and they gave it everything and they lost, but they gave it. But if they're watching their team and they feel that the certain players have been lazy, that they phoned it in, there will be so much anger. So across the board, do your best. It will be noticed. So for the next 7 days, I want you to do your best. And I would say make doing your best the rule for your whole life. So not just at work, where there are obvious sort of advantages to doing your best, which is professional development, a pay rise, all the rest of it. It's not just that, but I think it's just good for you and your development and your spiritual health to just do things really well. My father passed at the end of last year, and he was somebody that even if he was like vacuuming the living room or cleaning, I don't know what, getting rid of weeds in the garden, whatever it is that he did, he just did stuff thoroughly. He did stuff always to the best of his ability. It was just as standard that he just didn't do things badly. He gave everything his best shot, whether it was professional or trivial. He would do it properly. And I've got a relative like that who just made scrambled eggs recently. And, you know, scrambled eggs, most people can do scrambled eggs, but these scrambled eggs were just better than any scrambled eggs I'd had before. And I did watch him, and he was doing it very thoroughly. He was like chopping up the eggs and getting the temperature right, just so they didn't burn, and it was just moist enough, but not overcooked. And I ate those scrambled eggs, and they were so delicious. And it's because he didn't just make scrambled eggs, but he did it as well as he could. Do your best. It will be noticed. And the other final thing is that procrastination, the reason why people procrastinate is actually the weight of expectation. Okay. So it's like, I've got to do this company report, or I've got to wash the car, or I've got to do my tax return. And people are so overwhelmed because they're like, I've got to really do it so well. And I'm burdened by that. The expectation to do it really well means, and I do that with when I let's say replying to an email, and I think that's a really important email. I'm going to reply to that. I'm going to send the most amazing reply. But because it's going to take a long time and it's a big job to write that email, I'll do it tomorrow because I'm really busy today. And I want to send a great email to that person. And then you never send it, or you send it really late because you were so burdened by the fact that you have to send this great email. You'd have been better off sending a bad email straight away. Okay, but do your best with it, but just get that email sent off. Do your best, it will be noticed. Gets rid of procrastination, because all I'm asking you to do, and all you're asking yourself to do, whatever the task, is not to do it perfectly or brilliantly, just as well as you can. See, perfectly, that's not within your reach. Brilliantly, well, that's subjective, isn't it? But you know what doing your best means. And you can do your best. You can immediately do your best. So try for 7 days, doing everything to the best of your ability. And I think you'll find it will be noticed. And then one last line from Oprah Winfrey, who I think is very heroic. She doesn't believe in luck. Isn't that good? She says, luck is preparation meeting the moment of opportunity. How good is that? She is good, don't you think? That's 2 billion's worth there, isn't it? Luck is preparation meeting the moment of opportunity. So what that means is develop yourself, grow your skills, be as fabulous a person, colleague, friend, lover, father, mother, sister, brother, cousin as you can be. And then when an opportunity comes along, you're ready and you'll go and smash it. And it wasn't luck. So luck is preparation meeting the moment of opportunity. So in other words, preparation, right? You're always developing yourself. So let's say, good example really in broadcasting, where let's say you're a producer. I know a producer who became a host, became a presenter. And how cool is this, right? She worked very hard as a producer. She was very good, but she wanted to be on camera. So she became a very good producer, but she used to practice doing her own reports and things like that. So she was like, in her own time, she would do these run-throughs so that she was skilled up if ever the opportunity came along. She also kept a blazer in her bag at all times so that if there was a breaking story, she could put the blazer on and then cover it for the TV channel that she was working for. She never got on TV. But anyway, on one occasion, something happened and the producer said, can you cover this? Can you do us a report? And she's like, yes, I can. She takes the blazer out of her bag and she goes and does a great report. Bang, that's it. The rest is history. This is TV. She's on TV now. And that is an example of luck is preparation meeting the moment of opportunity. So always be prepared. Always develop yourself. Grow yourself. That is your preparation. Grow your skill set. Become better at your work. Take those training courses. Study outside of work hours. Make yourself better. Cultivate yourself. It would be the same, by the way, in relationships. Let's say you were always single and couldn't get in a relationship. But what you do is you get a haircut, you take more care of your clothes, you do more active things that will bring you into contact with people that you don't know. So you take up hobbies, you join some societies, you do some sports. Oh yeah, also maybe you're thinking, I'm a bit flabby, I'm not in great shape, I'm unfit. You start going to the gym, you're lifting weights, which means you're getting more lean, you're getting muscular. There's a brightness in your eyes, right? You change your diet, you're drinking less, you're drug-free. Develop yourself, right? You invest in yourself. Make yourself the person you want to be. And then you meet someone at a party and he or she is like, who's this? And then bang, it all happens. Now, this wasn't luck, was it? This was preparation meeting the moment of opportunity. In other words, you put some work in to make yourself, if we're honest, more attractive. And then you went to a party and you met someone. But if you hadn't done that preparation, if you haven't been to the hairdresser, you didn't go to the gym, you didn't change your diet, you're still drinking too much, you dabble in drugs, your career's in the toilet, your finances are upside down, you've not done anything really to improve, to try to make your life a bit better, who's going to be attracted to that? So luck is preparation meeting the moment of opportunity, which is proof, if you needed it, that developing yourself, making yourself 1% better a day, half of 1% better every day, is going to have compound interest and take you where you want to be. Have a lovely Easter. It's been great chatting to you. Can't wait to see you for episode 62 of The Mark Dolan Way. Please tell your friends about the show. Please give us an honest review and stay awesome and do your best. It will be noticed. Goodbye.